Welcome back here to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, and now talking about the AFC a little bit here, focusing in on the Tennessee Titans. Last year, a very odd season for the Titans. It seemed like they were just really relieved to get it over with towards the end of the year. It didn't seem like Mike Vrabel was going to come back. It all seemed all but likely that Derrick Henry wasn't coming back either. So they were really embracing, just restarting, getting a new fresh scheme in there, fresh ideas in that building come 2024. And that's exactly what they did. They made a lot of good changes, in my opinion, throughout this offseason, bringing in Calvin Ridley, bringing in L'Jarius Sneed, Brian Callahan as well as their offensive, or actually as their head coach for 2024. But I wanted to talk about their defense a little bit because the Titans hired their new defensive coordinator, Dennard Wilson, this season, and he is bringing a very violent approach to the team. That is how he would describe it. He told ESPN that from day one, we press everything, period. That is one of the first statements he said about this defense, that they're going to press and get in the face of opposing wide receivers and just be very violent towards opposing offenses as well in 2024. Last season, I think it comes very good for this Tennessee Titans team because last year they were a bit more conserved with their approach on the defensive side of the ball. They ran a lot more zone than press man coverage. 33% of the time last year was more zone, and that was only more than three teams there in the NFL. So they were, I guess, bottom four in amount of press coverage and man coverage you saw last year among NFL teams. And now you bring in Dennard Wilson, who has a very good reputation of exactly that, being more up in the face of wide receivers, being more so about man coverage, and having opposing teams and opposing wide receivers just beat you one-on-one rather than zoning it up and confusing opposing quarterbacks. Dennard Wilson was the secondary coach in Philadelphia a few years back when they led the NFL in fewest yards allowed per game at only 171. And compared to the 274 that Tennessee allowed last season, I would say that's a very positive sign. And also, Dennard Wilson was the secondary coach for Baltimore last year, and everybody knows how prominent and intimidating that Baltimore defense was. They ran a lot of man, and they ran a lot of blitzes at you, and that it was credit to Dennard Wilson as well. With Baltimore, which had Baltimore finished tied for second in the NFL for the least passing touchdowns allowed per year, only 18, and the fourth highest usage of press man coverage as well, using press coverage at about 68% of the time with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I know the personnel on your defense has a lot to do with it, but it is a good sign. It seems he's very comfortable using press and being one-on-one against opposing wide receivers, and I think that can only help this Tennessee Titans team because not only is it a better system, in my opinion, now they have the people to do it. Now they brought in the talent to sort of execute this game plan that Dennard Wilson wants to bring to this Titans team. They brought in L'Jarius Sneed, obviously. You pull up any clip of him last year, and especially in that Miami Dolphins game in the playoffs, being right up in the face of Tyreek Hill, bumping him, throwing off his route, throwing off the timing with Tua Tagovailoa. Tyreek struggled a lot in that game, and not to mention, obviously, Jalen Waddle really didn't play, but at the same time, you would expect Tyreek Hill to have a bit more success. L'Jarius Sneed did a very good job of shutting him down and just shutting down that entire Miami Dolphins offense. And also, apart from L'Jarius Sneed, you bring in Chidobe Awuzie from the Cincinnati Bengals. You sign him through free agency, another former Bengal joining Brian Callahan on this team. Another good press man coverage defensive back. Probably their best defensive back, if I'm not mistaken, just from watching the Bengals last year. I would say Awuzie was one of the more talented ones. Now he moves on to the Tennessee Titans, and they already had Roger McCreary, another aggressive and very hands-on defender, defensive back specifically for the Tennessee Titans last year. He was on the team already, so now they form their own version of a big three, I guess, on the defensive side of the ball, with Sneed, with Awuzie, and Roger McCreary, all, falling from the same tree, being very hands-on and being very aggressive at the point of attack against these wide receivers. Sneed and Awuzie and Roger McCreary all sort of touched on the idea of being more aggressive and embracing the new identity that Dennard Wilson has brought to this team. L'Jarius Sneed said, I'd like to put my hands on guys, be in their face, and aggressive with guys. You had Chidobe, Awuzie say, being in the face and being hands-on and playing press man coverage say it's gamesmanship, just being in the face and really affecting the receiver mentally. I don't think that's talked about enough with how much press really annoys the opposing wide receiver, so that's another positive sign for them. And Roger McCreary also chiming in and saying, we put fear in the offense's heart by being aggressive. Guys on the outside pressing and being more physical. That's something I really like that Dennard brought over here. All of them fit the bill, fit exactly what they want to do. And now it makes me think that this Tennessee Titans team, I know I've talked a lot about them on the offensive side of the ball with Hopkins, Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Will Levis. And that is something to be excited about. But on the defensive side, it's almost making me think that, defensively, I would still probably give the edge to the Houston Texans because of their reputation and how prolific they looked last year. Then they add Danielle Hunter this year. And I think they're just still going to be as dominant. But the Tennessee Titans, they're making a very good case to be there, to be in that conversation with the Houston Texans. At least definitely be second, because if you look at the Colts, I don't think they have enough experience on that side of the ball to really compete with what the Titans have going. And then the Jaguars a little bit more. Their defensive line is very impressive with Trayvon Walker, adding Eric Armstead, signing Josh Allen to that massive extension. Their defensive line is very, very good. But in the secondary, it isn't like this Tennessee Titans team where they have three very capable cornerbacks that now want to be as aggressive as possible. And not only that, by doing so, you allow that defensive line, those linebackers, to play up towards the line of scrimmage a little bit more and sort of go all out and try to stop the run if it is a run. And you still have enough confidence in your defensive backs in the secondary to cover those guys one-on-one and give the rushers and the defensive line enough time to get to the quarterback. I think this is a great marriage and a good sort of turning point for the Tennessee Titans to really put their stamp on the defensive side of the ball and say, our offense is very impressive, but defensively we could hold our own and compete with some of these defenses just in the AFC alone. I like what they're doing. You combine this with Harold Landry, Jeffrey Simmons. You still need a little bit more from your linebackers. I know they added Kenneth Murray from the Los Angeles Chargers, signed him through free agency, but I'd like to see a little bit more there, maybe some more on the opposite side of Harold Landry on the other pass rushing side. But all in all, I think this defense, compared to what everybody else is doing in the division, I think they have a good chance of being one of, if not the best defense in this division, in this AFC South, that is filled with a lot of offensive talent, but to counteract that, you need a good defense, and I think the Titans and the Texans are doing the best job of that. But don't sleep on the Titans. I really like what they're doing. They added a lot of good pieces, and this could be a year. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of new things going on, but sometimes that does bring out the best results from these teams where you really don't have any expectations. You have a lot of newness coming in. It refreshes everybody, and that's really the spark you need at times to get back on the right path and compete again in that division. The Texans still have a stronghold on everything. I want to preface that, but the Titans are there. The Titans are not someone to sleep on in 2024, but that pretty much wraps up that segment, and we're going to head into one more break before we come back and talk about Micah Parsons and his comments on playing baseball, how successful would he have been, and Dodgers starting pitcher Tyler Glasnow reacting to Micah Parsons' comments. I'll also give my thoughts on it when we return after this break in just a few seconds.